Welcome to Hogg's vlog, and on screen with me is Jock Campbell. Now, Jock Campbell was very important with the Australian side in the 2000s when they had that dominant period of 10 years. He was the fitness consultant, and he's been around the world. He's been over to India, travelled over there and been part of some teams there. But he runs his own fitness club, Jock Athletic. And also, he's got a little program out with Mitch Johnson. It's called Bowlfit. Now, welcome, Jock. Can you just talk quickly about Bowlfit with Mitch Johnson, please?
Well, Hoggy, I thought you deserved a gold microphone. Great introduction. Only special people get this. Now, the Bowlfit app is a mobile phone app that is adaptive and reactive and gives you bowling programs, strength and conditioning programs for your bowling specific to you. So we developed it for those people that couldn't get access to the great coaches and around the place. And Mitch and I developed that. It's been out for about 4 years. We've had professional cricketers on it. We've had 14-year-olds, and there's several different levels. And they've all said it's been a marvellous help. Marvellous, actually, Hoggy. So yeah, it was unreal to do with Mitch. Sorry, I keep looking over to the left because I've got the Ashes on here, and we're on fire. Australia's on fire. But thanks, Hoggy. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And look, we're going to have a little bit of banter now. Jock and I spent a lot of time together while we were on tour. Not only was he there to work out my fitness, but also to control me because I was a bit of a pest in the change room. So your role was to babysit me, basically, wasn't it, Jock?
Yeah, mate, it was great fun, Hoggy. Hoggy has a lot of energy for those that don't know. He was up early. He'd ring me at 5:15. One morning in the World Cup, he rang me up at 5:15 and he goes, "Oh, Jock, is it all right if I go and see the Lions today?" I said, "Hoggy, I don't care what you do today. It was our day off." And he goes, "Oh, all righty-o." And then he hung up, and then 5 minutes later, and I also said to him, "Don't ever ring me at this time again." He rang back 5 minutes later. He goes, "Oh, but we were going to potentially train today." I said, "I don't care, Hoggy." but the good thing was, Hoggy was full of beans, and it annoyed some of the players. I said, "Hoggy, if you need me, I'm here to help you. Don't annoy the other players. Just come and get me and we'll do whatever." And he'd come into my room. I couldn't get him out at night. He'd be knocking on my door. "Jock, let me in." But we trained together and it was unreal fun, mate. So, yeah, loved every moment.
What about that time when we were in Zimbabwe? I think it was 2003 or 4, just after the World Cup. We went to the West Indies, and then we were over there, and we were training, we were playing, and you took me out the back to kick the Aussie rules footy while the boys were batting because I was too annoying, and we kicked the footy out there. And then I came back because it was a bit of a rush. I had to go out and bat, and I went out with 2 right-handed gloves. Halfway out there, the boys had stitched me up, swapping with those 2 right-handed gloves. But now going back to Bowlfit, before we get right into the topic of workloads, you've used Bowlfit with a number of Indian bowlers over there. Can you mention a few names of Indian bowlers that have utilised this concept?
Yeah, well, actually, when we were developing it, I was training a fellow called Rush Kalaria. He's played India A and he's played for IPL. He had a knee injury and he was coming back and he grabbed my services. Then it was the year they won that he went on to play for Gujarat and they won their first ever Ranji trophy. So he used the programs that I was developing for Bowlfit. And he came back and he was a star in that season. And we complain about having too much cricket in Australia, the Shield cricketers. They played 9 Ranji Trophy games in 9 weeks. And then they were into the semis and finals. So, you know, how's that for workload? But yeah, he had a great season that year and did really well and got back to his best. And as I say, Gujarat won their first first Ranji Trophy in 50 years. So there's an example, but we've got lots of young kids on it. There was another chap from Surabands is his handle, but he played for Goa. And I didn't realise he was actually on Bowlfit for the last 2 or 3 years of his career. And he said it really helped his pace and being able to back up day after day. But we've got a guy on plays for St George. He's just cracked first grade and taken a 6 for. And now St George Premier Cricket has Moses on Reeks, plays plays for them, Josh Hazelwood, Curtis Patterson. Also, Ollie Robinson played for him a couple of years ago. So the big team. And anyway, he's been on it for 4 years, and he's now cracked first grade and going really well. So, yeah, plenty of players have been on it. But it's all based around the programs that you guys were on and Brett Lee was on and Mitch was on. So, it's all our secrets in the one tiny little app, Hoggy.
Exactly right. So we won't give them all away, but we're going to be on and off throughout the year talking about fitness for cricket to help the youngsters out there and just give a little bit of assistance, but also give a bit of insight on what happens on the professional circuit. Now, you've just mentioned workloads. When we were going around, it was just 50 over cricket and Test cricket. So, and we're talking about the amount of cricket that was being played then. How did you control the workloads with the players when they had to go from international cricket back to state cricket?
Well, it wasn't that hard actually, Hoggy, because in those days when I started, there was myself, there was the head coach, and there was the physio. We looked after the physical preparation of the players, and because they had contracted by Cricket Australia, basically we could give out directions on what they did. So, I even had Glenn McGrath bowling at Tonkin Oval in the middle of winter, which is the 5th grade oval. I knew the groundsman, I just got him to roll a wicket, and I'd go and catch him like I used to catch you all the time out in the middle, just to keep his workloads up during that period where there was no cricket on and we had a tour coming up. And there wasn't full-time S&Cs or full-time physios at the state cricket in those days. So often in the winter over here, we just had to look after the boys. So it wasn't that difficult. There was, it was going through the phase there where, they've done a bit of research and they're really putting limits on what bowlers could bowl. However, as a Test cricketer, you might have to bowl 25 overs in a day. And if you've only been bowling, 60 balls at training or 45 balls at training, how are you going to keep your pace up like a Brett Lee used to do at the end of the day's play or the end of 5 days' play? So it was quite easy. We were in charge of the Aussie boys and the state sides were in charge of the state boys. So it wasn't that difficult. I know there's a lot more stakeholders now, a lot more coaches. So I'm sure it's more challenging now.
Well, do you remember when you first saw me back in 2003? Shane Warne had the shoulder injury, and I got picked for the one-day game in Perth, and then got picked in that World Cup squad to go over to the South Africa, and rocked up here at the hotel in Perth, and Huda, the physio, and he's grabbed me, and my shoulders were hunched over. Like, I'd done plenty of weights, pretty muscly, but my whole shoulders were pulled over, and you had to straighten my whole body up. Otherwise, I would have been in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And
that's, I guess what I'm saying there, Jock, before jumping in, you've got the S&Cs in the state and S&Cs in Australia, but it doesn't seem like there was a coherent way of doing it to prepare the athletes for cricket so that they were right for international cricket from the state system.
That's right. And that was always my question to the state side. Look, you have this beautiful long pre-season. You guys should be way better conditioned when you come to me than, Test match cricketers that are playing 10 months of the year. And we just get short little blocks of pre-season training and then try and maintain it, or we actually did improve during those series. So, but as I said, they were only part-time. The S&Cs were only part-time back then, and they were only sort of given 12 weeks of pre-season. So there was like 2 or 3 months of training after the end of the season before they started pre-season. So there's only a couple of players that came into the squad at that elite fitness level. You were close, but Mike Hussey, he was outstanding when he came to the team. But yeah, so what was it? It was difficult, and I remember one pre-season I caught up with the Victorian strength and conditioners, and they were new guys, and they were from a AFL background. They said, look, we don't really know much about cricket, so we just gave them an AFL pre-season. And I said, okay, well, that's a bit different, but they said it seemed to work well. And anyway, the Victorian team had a spate of hamstring injuries that season. So, that's where it was back then. I think I was the only sort of specialist guy from cricket who'd gone through university and just studied the cricket process and played cricket All the rest were like from rugby league or from AFL. So it was a pretty new area then, and not many specialists. So, but as I say, I think it's a lot better now. But I don't know. I haven't been in the system that much for the last few years. But yeah, it was difficult to get everyone on the same page back then.
Yeah, and you just mentioned that you did play cricket. You've got 2 for 3 in a spell for Australia too, haven't you? While you're on tour.
Oh, I love how you brought that up, Hoggy.
Yeah, I had to bring that up, Jock. Had to bring that up. Now, you're talking about strength and conditioning coaches that are specialists in cricket. There's not really too many of them around the world. I think, looking at it, I think you're probably the only one that has really gone in deep with the study, especially with fast bowling, to make sure that we're limiting injuries. So, how deep have you gone into it?
Well, mate, it's been my whole life basically. So, I started out at university in the mid '80s, and there was this new course called Sports Science, and I did the coaching strand of that, and it was all, you had to pick your major sport. Mine obviously was cricket. I played cricket, 10 years of grade cricket in Sydney. And then that finished, and then they brought in a degree. That was a diploma, and they brought in the degree of sports science, and then I did the exercise science strand in that. Again, everything was targeted at cricket. And luckily I found out that I had a sprint coach as one of my lecturers at uni. I had a distance running coach as one of my lecturers at uni, and I was fascinated by the running involvement in cricket, and I wanted to get faster for cricket as well. And so
faster in running or faster in bowling?
Well, of course I wanted to get faster in bowling.
Yeah.
I thought I was fast, but everyone else said I was medium pace. So,
yeah.
But yes, and I knew that running was a big component of cricket, and so I really wanted to get better at that. And so I did all the courses for running and athletics, and coach runners, coach cricketers, and I have done my whole life. So there was no jobs in cricket in those days for physical performance, but I hoped one day there would be, and now it's massive. So, but even, I just saw a New South Wales guy that had been in the system for about 4 or 5 years, and he's just now gone to rugby league. So in Australia, there's competition for these guys, and cricket has notoriously not paid well compared to some of the other sports. So it's no wonder that our best strength and conditioning coaches, best physios are going off to other things. Like Errol went to rugby league because they offered him so much more money, and we lost Paddy Farhat to India, and we lost Pardo because the cricket in Australia wasn't paying them anywhere near what they could get in other sports or in cricket around the world.
Yeah, that's Errol Alcott.
Hooter!
I mentioned him Hooter at the start there. I should have done that. So Errol Alcott was one of the best physios that cricket ever have, and Paddy Farhat was very good as well. He's over there in India working with the Indians. So you've had that vast experience. Now we'll go back to Glenn McGrath. Glenn McGrath hardly had a week off from bowling, did he? So he just continued to bowl and keep that body churning over week after week, even when he had 6 months off.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And Diz was the same towards the end of his career.
What about Binger?
Binger was very similar. I mean, he only had time off when he was injured. And, it's a brutal sport when you're bowling 150 plus Ks an hour. 6 ankle operations just from his tibia crumbling away. And that's what I love about these fast bowlers. They just give everything to the sport and for their country. So yeah, it's a bit like any physical activity. If we have time off, we drop off in our abilities in it. So, whenever we're doing gym or running or any other physical training, you want to keep that bowling action going so your body's getting used to any physical changes you make. And classic example, Nathan McAndrew, who trained with us and again was on the Bowlfit App program. He came to us, he's bowled about 125, and now I hear the commentators say he's one of the quick bowlers. He's can bowl in the mid 140s. But he went through a stage where he got really fast and more explosive, and he lost his run up because we didn't get any outdoor nets until close to the start of the season. But because he was going further per stride, because he had more power, he had to adjust his run up, and that's the things we want to keep going. But you just got to keep that body accustomed to the bowling action. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to bowl max speed all the time, but you definitely don't want too much time off. We know we have too much time off, it increases the risk of injury, but also your pace will drop, your bowling endurance will drop. It's like any physical ability.
Now, you just said Nathan McAndrew, he went from 125 Ks to 140 Ks. Now, McAndrew is playing for South Australia and in the Big Bash, if you want to have a look at that. Who's he playing in the Big Bash for?
The Thunder.
The Thunder, that's right. He was on last night. I knew he was in the green team, and I knew it wasn't the Stars. So, young kids out there that are aspiring that might want to get on Bowlfit, do you have to have a body structure for fast bowling, or can anyone just go in there and go from 125 to 140 Ks?
Well, it's all down to the individual, and we're on a webinar the other day, and we were talking about this. It's not I'll train hard for 4 weeks and I'll jump from 120 to 140 Ks now. It's a long-term process, and that probably took Macca 2 or 3 years to increase to that pace. And then he was in the New South Wales system, and he's away. So it's not 6 weeks, it's not 12 weeks, it's year after year of consistent training and consistently improving every year. And it's not for everyone. Like, if you want to be an international cricketer or a professional cricketer, the guy on the screen right now, Hoggy, was relentless with his training. He never stopped. He played till he's 47 because that's what you did. And it's, if you think you're going to play representative cricket at that level without dedicating, 11 and a half months of the year to your profession, you're kidding yourself.
Well, yeah, but you helped me out a lot there too. And I think once I left the international arena, I had a couple of years off, and then I came back and played T20, and I was going to play for different teams around the world. Now, you're going to go jump from team to team with different fitness personnel. That's where I just thought, I can't do that. I've got to get on board with you again and make sure I've just got one person controlling my body, my health, so that I am right for the pickings when I go and I'm ready for T20 cricket. So let's move into that. Nowadays, you've got T20 cricket, one-day cricket, you've got Test cricket. We've got Australia, we've got India with Pakistan. They've got 3 or 4 bowlers that can bowl 140 plus, and they are probably the most important bowler in your lineup, because once you're bowling over 145, the pressure's on the batsman. They don't like it at that pace. Now, how do they keep their workloads in check so that they're ready for Test matches, they're ready for the big occasion in T20 World Cup, and they're ready for the one-day World Cup games as well? How do they keep their body in charge so that they can bowl those long spells in Test cricket, and then those real short, sharp, more powerful spells in T20 cricket?
This is a really good question, Matt, and this has been an issue since 2008. But you touched on it then. You need to get someone looking after you the whole time, to look after your whole program. I did this with Haydos in the around that time when this franchise cricket came in and he retired from international cricket. I would go up there and spend sort of 8 weeks on and off living in Queensland and train him individually. But I think it takes a lot of discipline from the bowlers, and to work out that they need, even through these T20 tournaments, they need to keep their bowling workloads up so that they can bowl 25 overs today and back up and bowl another 10 overs tomorrow and do what the Aussies have done this morning and break through when we're under the pump. So I think that's where I really see these, with the franchise cricket, you've got to take responsibility for yourself. You can't just be preparing for 4 overs. You've got to have your bowling volume day, you've got to have your bowling speed day. Obviously, you work on your skills the whole time. And that's what Mitch said as well. He said, if you just specialise in a long form cricket, you don't learn those skills that you do in T20. So I'll give you an example of this. Back in 2008, when Australia was touring India, I think it was the first year of IPL, Dougie Bollinger was playing for Chennai, and he chose to keep playing instead of playing a couple of tour games with Australia. Anyway, he goes to the first test, very underdone, and he broke down. And we were on top in that test, and then we were a bowler short, and we got beaten. And so that's the difference it can make to a test series, and then that put pressure on our bowling attack for the next tests after that, because already they were multiply fatigued because we were bowler short in the first test. So it really comes down, and I remember Haydos saying, Dougie, with the international players in IPL, the trainers and the coaches let them just prepare how they want, and so Dougie was just preparing for T20 cricket. So that really cost him, and it cost Australia. So that's an example way back when it just started, but that's how they've got to do it. You've got a reasonable amount of time between some games in T20 cricket, and then it's just. And even I remember when we were over in India, and Darryl Tuffy he'd get angry at me if I went to the gym without him. I said, but mate, it's game day. He goes, mate, it's 4 overs. He goes, I feel actually better after doing some gym for that night match. So you can still train a lot through those two T20 periods. That's what I think.
Well, definitely. And T20 cricket as a bowler, you're only bowling 4 overs, and then you do a little bit of fitness around the field where you're running hard. So that's your running component in it. And then you've got to get extra overs under your belt. So after the game, you can go out there and bowl another 4 to 6 overs to someone holding a mitt to make sure you've got those workloads up.
Yeah,
just looking at
also you've got the centre wicket then as well. Yeah. So you can use that, and that's better practice than the nets. So that's a great way to do it. Is that I remember seeing Shoaib. We beat Pakistan in a test in Adelaide, and he went out after we beat them to get his loads up because they only bowled in 1 innings. So he just charged in on, and for the fast bowlers, that the footings of the centre wicket are always much better than the nets. So that's where they can get great value. So it's a really good point.
And youngsters out there, when you're playing in the backyard or playing grade cricket, wherever you are in the world, and you're aspiring to go to the next level, and you have a game where you bowl the opposition out for 80 and you've only bowled 5 overs and the game stopped, well, get out there and bowl and prepare for the next game. Get those workloads up, because when you get to the next game, and you've got to bowl a 20-over spell, and you've got to bowl those 5 overs out the back end to try and get your team over the line, you want to make sure you are bowling fit to be able to keep the pace up, to keep the pressure on the opposition players, opposition batsmen. That's how you would define it, would you?
Yeah, and look, there's we went, as I said, we went through the phase where they were all saying about limit the amount they bowl, and then you get other coaches saying, oh no, they've got to bowl heaps. But it's a really common sense approach. You can't go from bowling once a week to bowling 5 times a week. You've got to gradually bring that workload up. There's so many things we know about workloads and volumes and intensities that, but you need one coach looking after that that's going to take charge. And those youngsters out there, they can often go from playing in one team last year, they grow a bit, they're taller, they bowl fast, their levers are longer. And all of a sudden they're in 2 or 3 teams, their school team, a rep team, and a grade team, and they're in 4 teams bowling 6 or 7 days a week. There's no doubt they're going to get injured doing that because their workload has just jumped. So when I say with someone like Macca, there's a gradual build-up. Tom Pinson's another one, plays grade cricket here, played a lot of second 11 cricket for the States. We built his levels up over 3 years so he could be able to bowl in 4-day cricket and be strong through that. That's how long it takes to get to that level.
That's a very good example there, because like with the bowlers that you've had over on India with the Bowlfit app, and the bowlers that you have come through over in New South Wales there with your program there, and the other fast bowlers that you've had around Australia. What's with the injury rate? Have you had more success than probably some of the state programs? Because the WA state program here, we have our fast bowlers injured left, right, and centre every year, and we're out the back end of the season. Who are we going to bowl? Where are we going to find another fast bowler?
Yeah, look, I don't know if ours are better. All I can say, Hoggy, is in 2004, 2005, which was my last full sort of season with Cricket Australia, it's still got the lowest incidence of recorded injuries in history. So And the year before that, I think is the second least. So, we're doing something right. And we had our bowlers on the park a lot. And the biggest thing, when we talked about this the other night with screening the bowlers when they first start, you wouldn't believe the amount of bowlers I get that come to me and from the last season, they come to me new, we assess and screen them. And one of the questions is, have you ever had back pain? And 2 or 3 every season will go, oh yeah, my back was quite sore at the end of last season. And the next question is, was it sharp pain? Was it dull pain? Oh no, it was pretty sharp. I said, well, what did you do? Oh, coach said to stretch it out and keep bowling. So sharp pain in the lower back in a young fast bowler is like red flags. Sirens are going off. My brain's exploding because I know what that means. It's usually a stress fracture or stress reaction. So, there's so many things we know. And so we catch some of them that 3 months after the season, when they've finished the season, they've still got that injury. We get them scanned and all of a sudden, there's a hot spot or a stress fracture. So it's really important that's your first port of call. And it's really careful on gradually increasing your bowling loads. We see it often where players get picked from grade cricket where you're playing once or twice a week to all of a sudden you're playing 4-day cricket at state level like a Pat Cummins. And they break down because they're physically not ready. But they're charging in because they're playing against some of the best batsmen in the world. So all of a sudden that pressure's on them. We are very cautious with how quickly we progress these people. And also as soon as there's any signs of pain or, giveaways, we address that straight away. We don't get them to bowl through sharp back pain, that's for sure. And a little example is, thankfully, one of my bowlers in COVID, he was bowling in the nets and he's only 15 and he was bowling to one of the Southern first grade batsmen. Anyways, he was trying to bowl too fast. I wasn't there because they were only allowed to train in pairs, but Stewie Clark was in the next net with a couple of his bowlers or one of his bowlers. And anyway, Sam started getting a sore back. And Stewie said, you're not bowling? He goes, oh no, I'll just stretch it out. And he stood in front of the wicket and he said, no, ring jock, you are not bowling. So that saved this kid. He had a stress reaction. And it purely from falling away and trying to bowl too fast. He lost his action and that's how quick it can happen. So in like the space of 4 overs, and Brett did that in Perth. Brett, the first test I was with the Aussie team, we were playing the West Indies. There were holes in the footmark, so Binger was going out wide and sort of pushing it in. And he said he was angling his back a bit. Because he kept taking wickets, he didn't worry about it. And from that, he got a stress reaction just from changing his action, and something that he wasn't used to. That was enough to give him a little stress reaction. So, but Errol picked that up so quickly and got him scanned, and we got on top of that very early.
And how long was he out for that particular moment?
Not long. He was back for the one-dayers, and that's where he fractured his elbow when he threw in from the boundary against the Fremantle doctor, Hoggy.
Yes, yeah, right. This is the thing, with selection and with state selection and not knowing the science. So let's say I'm going out there and I'm a state selector and I don't consult the fitness consultant about these youngsters coming through. You're going to do more damage than good. And this is where we've got to have more continuity between selectors and the main coaches like yourself coming through. Now, where is this young kid at the moment in his development? That's the first question you ask before you put him on the big stage in Shield cricket. Otherwise, you'll end up like we have with Pat Cummins, where he's earned a couple of $1 million over a 3-year period, where he didn't do what he's getting paid to do, bowling a ball, because we were trying to fix him up there. And I'm going to bring up Jasprit Bumrah right now. Very much like Haris Rauf from Pakistan over there. Both come from tennis ball cricket. Bumrah was picked up in a university. Someone was just driving past. All of a sudden, the Mumbai Indians got him. And all of a sudden, he's playing test cricket. And everyone's talking about, he's got this whippy action. He's fast. He's going to be dominant in test cricket, one-day cricket, and T20 cricket. All of a sudden, he's the head bowler or the main bowler of leading the Indian attack, and there's so much responsibility on him, and there's no wonder why that he drops off a little bit, because he hasn't been prepared for that workload. How would you go about that when you find someone that's got so much potential, but and you just want him to play every game? How hard is it just to say to the coaches, pull him back, don't make him play all these games because there's too much in the international calendar?
Yeah, and that's where experience comes into it, and just having that strength to know to really back your decision on these guys and speak up. I mean, there's coaching teams now, and it's, like I said, I think before, when it was Errol and I basically decided on the fitness of the player, and that was easy. So we discussed that with the coach and then the captain, and then you play on. But now there's like 10 coaches and different physios and doctors and nutrition. They're all throwing their 2 cents in, the bowling coaches. So it's I'm sure it's more challenging, but you're right. They need to speak to that whole group, that coaching system. And, they've got all the stats now. They've got all their workloads. And you can clearly see whether this guy's up to 4-day cricket or not. And going back to Pat Cummins, because he was such a weapon, they kept trying to rush him in. He played that Shield final when he was an 18-year-old kid, and I think he bowled 50 overs in that match. And, of course, he broke down because he was used to playing grade cricket or kids cricket. Yeah. But he was so talented. And so then they just kept trying to rush him in because they wanted to win games, and it cost the kid. Thankfully, he's come through, and Mitch Johnson had the same thing. He was a lightning fast bowler, and the first time I met him, he asked to speak to me at in Queensland at the Gabba, and he said, I've had 4 stress fractures. I'm about to get dropped out of the squad for Queensland, and I'm not even sure if he'd played a first class game at that stage. And they told him if he had 1 more stress fracture, he was out of the game. He'd probably never bowl again. And one of the stress fractures he cracked right through. So I think the coaches, and there's a lot of pressure on the coaches and the captain to win games. So what you said about Bumrah, what a remarkable player, and he's just an example of there's no one size fits all for fast bowlers. He follows through, his arm goes between his legs, he barely runs in, his last few steps he gets a bit of momentum. His arm doesn't even come up high, as Binger says all the time. He's got another 5 to 10 Ks in him, but we don't want to teach him that. And yes, they should be. India seems to be rotating their bowlers a lot better now, and they've got a good band of fast bowlers that they can do that they can trust to do that. And they did that in Australia really well. So I think everyone's starting to cotton on to it that these bowlers can't play 5 tests in a row and be fresh at the end of the tests. It's fine if you've got enough good fast bowlers to do that, but some of the weaker teams won't have that. So it's a really tricky one, but I think Pat Cummins could have been managed better. That's what I think, and I'm entitled to my opinion. Yep. And definitely Mitch, when he was younger, I think could have been managed a lot better. But once again, they didn't have full-time anyone back then. So, and the boys loved that he could bowl fast, and so the captains wanted him in, the coaches, and sometimes to the detriment of the bowlers. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. But I think you've got to have those experienced cricket guys in there, like Errol had. He was even telling when he was working on Russell Crowe's movie, Cinderella Man, he was even telling the Hollywood producer, saying, mate, you got to stop, and that's enough today. And Richie Cunningham from Happy Days, I can't remember what his actual name is, but he was the producer, and he goes, but Errol, can we do a couple more scenes? He goes, if you want him to be doing scenes tomorrow, it stops now. And he goes, it was great fun telling the Hollywood producer what to do. But he had the confidence to do that. And so that's what you need. And that's why you need these experienced cricket specialists in there.
Well, we're just Australia. We're just watching the Test match now, and Hazelwood looks as though he's had a few injuries. So while we're recording this podcast, the first Ashes Test is on, and there's a little bit of doubt about Hazelwood's fitness. Now, he's been over playing in the IPL, then the T20 World Cup. Now, Australia over the last couple of years have had different bowlers bowling in T20 games. All of a sudden, they've gone back to the big three: Stark, Hazelwood and Cummins. And because Hazelwood's just been playing T20 cricket, that could be his downfall, where he's not fully fit and prepared for this first test match.
100%, Hoggy. And you've seen that, like you see from the England side as well, Stokes has been out of the game for a long time. He's struggling. Ollie Robinson, who was out at St George, and always the question on Ollie was, is he fit enough to bowl those tough overs late in the day? And there's no excuse, I don't think, for the English side coming out here not being prepared for the heat and not being prepared physically. I know they had to isolate, but that's not a long period they were without training. So, and they could have been doing heat training in their rooms as well. They definitely could have been doing it like we did in England before we went to the Indian tour in 2004, where we won there. We prepared for the heat. So I think there's quite a few players that are suffering from having IPL World Cup T20 and then trying to catch up with their bowling loads. Once again, remember what I said about gradual increases in volume and intensity. You can't go from just being ready for 4 over cricket to being ready for 25 overs in a day and having to back up. Hazelwood's been a superman over the last few years of bowling. You just plug him in. He's McGrath-like, except he's a bit quicker. And what a player. So I hope he's not injured. I don't know what... Do you know what he's done?
No, I don't know what he's done. He's looks as though he's come on the attack now. So he's only bowled 10 overs, and Green's bowled more overs than him, the Australian all-rounder. So that's a bit of a worry. But anyway, we'll wrap up now, because we're going to have a few podcasts to help young cricketers around the world just to get a bit of a gist of how important it is for fitness in cricket. So we'll talk about batting, spin bowling, and we'll get back into fast bowling, because I want to talk to you about certain actions as well. But young kids out there, right now, with where they're at now, can you give them one tip with their cricket fitness so that they can move along and just to help improve their game?
Yeah, I think the big tip is there's no one silver bullet. You've got to make sure your bowling loads only increase gradually. Don't bowl more than 3 or 4 days a week. Get your strength, find a strength coach out there, or go to the Bowlfit app that will teach you the correct technique, strengthen your core, your hips, your sides, your shoulder stability before you try and lift anything heavy, and get a plan. Improve your running. So, you ask for one thing, there's no one silver bullet. Get really fit with your running, so your run up can be consistent and lower intensity than your fastest run that you can do. The faster you can become as a runner makes your run up a lot easier. And your aerobic fitness to be able to back up day after day is very important. And then all you need your injury prevention strategies as well. So my best advice, get on the Bowlfit app. That's what we created it for. And it looks after your entire program, rounded program, to help you individually as a bowler. So that's my advice. Hoggy?
Yep. Well, you've got Mitchell Johnson on there as well, and Mitchell Johnson's the guinea pig, one of the fastest bowlers going around in world cricket, and had longevity in the game as a fast bowler as well. And when you're doing these programs, don't be like me, where Jock will send out the program and I think, right, well, I'm competing against this other guy here. I've got to do a little bit extra, and that's where you start doing the injuries. So I did a hamstring when I was later on in my career. I think that was 2 years out the back end of my career, and I missed 3 games for it because I was stupid by not going or not crossing the I's and T's and following the program to a T. Simple as that. Okay, so once you get someone that you can trust behind you to help with your game and help with your fitness, like I had with Jock, don't lose them. Trust them, because they're the specialists and they're there to help you. And no one else. They want the best for you. That's their job. So thanks very much, Jock, for joining us tonight, or this morning. Got to get it right. Now I'm going to have a bit of a link downstairs with the Bowlfit app, how people can get a hold of that too, Jock, so that,
Awesome.
young bowlers over there in India can and Pakistan and other places that want to pursue the game of cricket and be like a Mitch Johnson or a Jasprit Bumrah or Ishant Sharma, Shami, Harris Ralph. Shaheen Afridi, we'll put another name out there.
Yeah, glad I don't have to face him.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to face him. But we're there Jock's there to help you. And I know there's thousands of people out there that just want to bowl fast. So thanks very much for joining me, Jock. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And there's going to be plenty more of this with your fitness specialist, Jock Campbell, on Hogg's vlog.
Thanks, Hoggy.
Thanks, mate. Oh, look at that pink ball there.
That was a good call.